Let's go. I'm unstoppable, do the impossible. I'm irresponsible, yet I'm phenomenal. I got an arsenal, I'm dropping bombs, you know. No, I'm not stopping, no. Conquer the obstacle. To the top, here I go, think I'm chosen to be the king of rock, think the people have spoken. I can hear the tick-tock of the clock, I'm in motion. So now I'm gonna pop, causing all this commotion. Yeah.
Anyway, we got a few things to talk about in this segment, but it is the ever controversial pro wrestling segment. But we're going now. Again, there's a few other things. There's more than just the shows that we're going to talk about. But again, we'll do them rapid fire, so we'll go through them quicker. But one of the things, again, since we all are relatively new to the YouTube channel and everybody doesn't quite know us yet, our audience is new and everything. For the audience we have, we're still working on growing it. But I thought it'd be kind of cool to kind of maybe go around the panel, kind of like we do with football, and say when and how did you become a fan of wrestling?
I can tell you exactly when, but I do remember one of the first shows I watched. Oh crap! It was after King of the Ring, the Stone Cold thing at King of the Ring.
Wow,
I watched that, and then I think I stopped for a while too.
But that was your first, like,
was it?
Because that was '96. That's
yeah.
Really...
No, WCW was the first one I watched because I remember watching WCW before Raw. And what the fuck was that?
Some early '90s, most likely.
We established Brandon's old and has a bad memory.
He been hit in the head too many times too.
But I know I stopped watching wrestling after they bought WCW. Like I stopped watching it, and then. I think one day it was a Saturday. I was sitting at the house flipping through the channel, and I turned on TNA for the first time. And this is when TNA still had the six-sided ring, and it was AJ and Chris Sabin. And I watched that match, and then I was like, "It was dope." And then that's what got me back into watching wrestling, to where I ended up watching more Monday night shit like that. But yeah, I remember watching the whole Monday Night Wars thing.
Right.
I stopped after they bought WCW.
Okay.
I don't know why.
Well, and it did go a little bit downhill after that. No question about that. I was just kind of surprised it wasn't like a little farther back, but okay.
It probably was, but I can't remember that.
Okay. Damon?
I had a lot of head injuries, man.
Oh, I probably started watching around probably the Ruthless Aggression era.
Yeah, you're a little younger than all of us, so I can see that. That was about early 2000s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember telling people to suck it in school, and I had an Austin 316 shirt. It's the one that had the skull with the snake on it, going through the skull.
Go the skull in the front. Yeah.
I mean, I remember when I was in second grade, I had a NWO backpack.
Real talk, Miranda had a bird named Hulk Hogan.
No, I thought it was.
Bird was racist as shit.
What'd you say, Tony?
I just thought it had a different name. I thought it was like Hork Hogan or something.
Oh, Hork Hogan.
He said Hork Hogan.
But
hope we didn't teach it to say racist things. That's for sure.
I actually had a T-shirt made in high school because my nickname was Blue. Because I always had something blue on.
Yep.
So it says Blue 316, and on the back it says I just stole your Twinkie because I was fat.
I like that. That's cool.
That's dope.
I think my first memory was going to the very first Survivor Series in Richfield, Ohio, Richfield Coliseum. It's one of my very first memories. So yeah, that goes back to the 80s.
Okay. I can tell you the exact match. 1992 Royal Rumble, where Ric Flair won the Undisputed Championship at drawing number 3 and went the distance.
With a tear in
my eye. Yeah, that one.
I remember one of the first times I watched wrestling with my mom, because I remember she saw Jimmy Snuka, and she said, "I've seen him wrestle before." And she's talking about the time is it Madison Square Garden where he dove off the cage?
I believe so.
On Don Baracco.
Yeah.
She watched it in the audience, hitchhiked from Long Island to go see.
Yeah, I remember that.
She watched it with her dad, and I remember her telling me that story. Damn. Yeah, that's the first time I watched wrestling with my mother is when she told me that story.
Well, I remember when I got the 92 Royal Rumble on VHS, which for kids, that's a little cassette tape about yay big. You had to stick in a recorder to rewind, and it had actual tape on it or film that in the inside. And if you bent it up, which I did, I wore that tape out. I watched that thing. And one of the best parts about that memory to me is that was also the same year of WrestleMania 8 in Indianapolis, and my family got us all tickets to go see that show. So that was my first live event too, seeing Ric Flair defend the title against Randy Savage, which is his second world title, and Hogan obviously in the end with Sid Vicious, or Sid Justice, I believe was his name at the time, with Ultimate Warrior's return. So again, things I'll never forget, but that's where I started, and I haven't turned back since, even though there's been times that you kind of wanted to quit. That's for sure.
It's a little rough.
I know when I started watching, Eddie was big. Cena was just getting started.
Yeah.
Were you there for was it when they're called the Rascals? It was
the Radicals.
The Radicals with Benoit and Eddie, and
Eddie and
that was a little bit before my time when I started watching.
Dude, Perry Saturn's underrated.
Those years with the ruthless aggression and Cena and Kurt and all that stuff, those Smackdowns with JBL, those were some of the best shows looking back on it now. Yeah. I mean,
I don't even I don't remember watching any Raws, but Smackdowns I remember because of that.
So, what was your favorite era of wrestling then? I mean, the Attitude Era.
Yeah, most people would say that, but to me, to be honest though, you go back on the WWE Network now on Peacock or whatever, and you watch some of the stuff from any time in wrestling for that matter. But the Attitude Era, we all remember it fondly for like The Rock, Austin, Hogan. Not Hogan, yeah. Rock, Austin, Triple H, Taker. But if you go back and watch it, there's a lot of garbage on those shows too. I mean, wrestling's really not changed that much from those years, and those are considered their best years. But
see, that's the thing. Wait, when we were teenagers though, that garbage was legit because you saw half-naked women.
Yeah, but we're also getting hands being birthed by Mae Young. We're getting the
yeah. You got
the headbangers, the oddities. Some of this stuff is just like
Vince McMahon pissing himself on TV.
But the highs outweigh the lows.
Everything from the late 70s up into 92, 93. I even go maybe 94. That was my time.
I agree. I would say either the 80s, like WrestleMania 3 to 9, somewhere in there. Then it kind of died off a little bit when WCW caught fire. But then, again, of course, the Attitude Era and the Ruthless Aggression. I mean, they all had their highs.
Legitimately, I think I watched WCW Nitro before I seen a Raw. Like, that's where my wrestling started.
Yeah,
I was on TNT, and you had to get cable. You had to have USA.
One of the things I really regret about the Attitude Era is I really did not watch a lot of Nitro. I tried, but by being in school and stuff too, I tried to record it after Raw. And then I didn't always get a chance to watch. I mean, I could have watched the next day, but life and things like that happened. So I that's why I kind of feel like I want to see like the AEW and the NXT stuff now, because I feel like I didn't get that back in the day. Yeah. But
man, and then too, like I remember ECW was a thing, but all they did was pay-per-views, and we couldn't. My mom was never gonna let me watch an ECW pay-per-view. So I remember one time, me and TJ went to his grandpa's house, and we talked his grandpa into letting us buying a ECW pay-per-view for it. And his grandpa went to bed, and me and TJ were sitting in the living room watching this ECW show. And I was like, yo, this is wrestling. Most violent, foul-mouthed thing I've ever seen in my life. And I was like, I'm here for it.
Well, and speaking of memories, one of my fondest memories, which again, kids don't have now, was going to the movie rental store, like Blockbuster or something like that, and just going down the wrestling aisle and picking out 2 or 3 tapes to watch for the week.
So you had that. In the 7th grade, I had a social studies teacher named Mr. Yannon. He was a huge wrestling fan. And when he found out that a lot of us kids were wrestling fans there too, he would bring in he had library tape, VHSs of old wrestling shit. And like he would if we did good in class, he would legit let us go into the projector room and watch these tapes. And then if we didn't finish it or whatever, he'd let us take them home. We'd bring them back or whatever. Cool. He'd just give us a new one every other fucking week, dude. And some of the coolest shit though was on the last day of school. That's all we did. We just hung out in his room and watched these old wrestling videos.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, I know. one of my earliest memories of wrestling. I was again in second grade with my NWO backpack.
Nice.
Hey, Wolfpack or original?
I think I had original. My brother had the Wolfpack red and black.
I was more of a Wolfpack fan.
But the earliest I forgot what time it was because it was like back in I was like I said second grade, and I'm gonna describe the match. It isn't gonna help, but it was a cage match with Flair and a bunch of other guys beating the shit out of Flair, and Flair was bleeding.
Imagine that. Yeah.
Like I said,
That narrows it
my
down.
description of it isn't gonna help. But
Well, that kind of leads into my next little topic. We are going to discuss a little bit about Blood and Guts. Again, 5-minute limit for those shows. But before we get into those, what's our favorite memories of war games from the past?
Like, what do you mean? Old?
Well,
war
just
games?
just any war games that was before this week, obviously. Like, what were your favorite ones? Which ones stand out to
Or
you?
did you ever watch a War Games?
Yeah,
I
that
was
too.
not.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever actually seen, like a WCW war game.
Well, NXT did them.
so we're
I know
talking
it-
WCW. I haven't seen a lick of them, but the NXT one.
NXT
It was
for
the
me-
one Ricochet. I think it was the first one.
Yeah, the first war games was fucking insane.
Is that the one where Ricochet jumped from the top of the cage and did like some flip?
I guess they didn't have a roof on that time. I know the NXT sometimes don't or never have. I don't recall.
I don't think they have ever had a roof.
They haven't had a roof.
I mean, obviously.
I wanna say
Oh, go ahead.
it was I can't remember a WCW war games. I'm being completely honest with you. I know there were. I just can't remember.
I know what
And
you're
you probably
saying.
won't because they didn't have a War Games. And I mean, when was the last WCW War Games?
It was a long while ago.
96, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you, dude. But I do know NXT's first war games was dope.
Did you mean to tell me they didn't have any with the NWO versus WCW at all?
No, because
They
everybody
might
in
have, but I mean,
WCW
still,
was
that
part of
was
NWO.
Yeah.
That was 96, 97 when they came in.
They might have had one. Yeah. It's true. Yeah, I mean, when it comes to the old stuff, I mean, I have vague memories of like Dusty
Yeah,
and
like-
Ric Flair, some of those back in the old WCW or whatever you might call it. Maybe even NWA. I don't know if it was NWA or not, but
It was NWA.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah, and then when Crockett bought NWA and became WCW, but yeah, it started as the NWA. Yeah.
okay. I mean, my most recent memories obviously are the NXT ones, and they've been really good too. I know some fans have kind of criticized it, but because like they didn't get all bloody or whatever. But again, that's not the most important thing to me when it comes to that match. It's just the way you do the match. But yeah, I mean those were great too.
So 2017 was seemingly the first War Games match in nearly 20 years. The teams were Undisputed Era versus Sanity.
Sounds right.
Roderick Strong teaming up with the Authors of Pain.
Okay. Yeah, I remember Undisputed Era was probably at a few, if I remember correctly.
And then that one, I think, was when Strong joined.
Okay. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
And 2019, it looks like there's one.
what about you, Tony? Did you say one that you were fond of?
What's up, man?
Did you say war games that you were fond of, or we didn't skip you? Did we?
I mean, I it's hard for me to remember the War Game stuff.
I don't think I've ever seen
It was so long ago.
Yeah.
But it's a great concept. I like the idea of it. The two
Mhm.
rings, the big cage.
Mhm.
Really enjoy it.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. I have one question before
Okay.
we go anywhere.
Sure.
If there was a pay-per-view that you want to see come back, what would that be? For me,
Halloween Havoc.
Well, NXT still does them.
King of the Ring.
Kick of the Ring would be a good, as long as you make the winner someone you're going to push, which they,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, instead don't give them the dumb King gimmick every time.
No. But
Um,
King of the Ring. I would love to see King of the Ring come back.
Yeah, that would be a good one. Again, it just depends on how you book it for me. A lot of the gimmick pay-per-views I really don't want to see, just because I don't think you should build the matches around the gimmick, build it around the feud
Right.
if it requires the gimmick.
But here's the thing, though, like, you know, with King of the Ring, there was a reason why you had that whole thing.
Right.
You know what I mean? I don't know why they got away from shit like that. You know, just like with Money in the Bank, Money in the Bank has become this thing. You hold on to the damn thing as long as you can, and then
Now, I don't think I'd like this now, but I remember when they first introduced the concept, I thought Buried Alive was cool. But now, maybe not. But at the time, it was a new concept, something fresh, you know, so I was kind of cool with it. Elimination Chamber was another one when they first did it. But back then, they didn't have the padding. It was all metal, and, I mean, at least it wasn't, you know.
You can't keep doing that.
No, I understand.
It was all metal up until 2017.
Yeah.
You can't keep doing that.
And that'll kind of tie in a little bit to the ending of Blood and Guts. I understand you want to be safe, but it does take a little bit of the realism out of it. I understand the argument, but we'll get into Blood and Guts here in a few. But before we do that, I did want to have your thoughts on Dark Side of the Ring a little bit. Start this week with Brian Pillman. Also, I saw part one. It was cool from what I could tell.
I haven't watched it.
Definitely, you know, I do like how he took the idea of the loose cannon, and basically you couldn't tell whether he was being legit or it was all character. In a world where kayfabe was dying, you know, he was able to get the crowd to believe him, and even some promoters to believe him, according to the documentary, about whether or not he was, you know, it was all an act or not. So in that regard, pretty ingenious, I think. But again, they you know, he obviously had his demons as well, clearly. Otherwise, he wouldn't be on Dark Side of the Ring. But I do want to see part two. I haven't got around to checking it out yet. Anybody else get a chance to watch it?
Not yet.
Okay. Well, we'll try to catch those probably, and they're on every week now going forward. But I also did want to get your opinions on the A&E bios for Stone Cold Steve Austin, Roddy Piper, and the Macho Man Randy Savage have been released so far.
I didn't see those yet.
I know Tony have.
Busy this week.
Yeah.
Stone Cold's was really good. Roddy Piper's hit me really hard, especially towards the end. And I haven't watched Savage's yet, but I heard it was really not that good. Like,
yeah.
It was just all over the place. I mean, because each one is, I guess, directed by a different person. So it's they're not the same. The Roddy Piper one, though, man, like, you just see how much, like, shit he went through in his life. And there was two things that stood out the most to me. One, I totally looked past how great of a heel he was. Mm-hmm. He probably was the best heel that we've ever had in wrestling. They said he was stabbed 3 times in his entire career, and that after the last one, which I'll tell you the quick story on real here in a second, he ended up having Kevlar put into his leather jackets that he wore to the ring. So I think it was like early to mid 80s, he was having a match with Sergeant Slaughter, and he was going through the crowd, and someone started jaw-jacking with him, and he was doing his thing as a heel, and they got into it. So the cops pulled him apart, and Sergeant Slaughter, being the good guy, he got into it with them somehow, whatnot, more to get Roddy out of the way and make him safe, but make it still look like he's helping the fan, yada, yada, yada. So they get backstage, and the cops have the guy that he was going back and forth with, and they go, you know, Mr. Piper, we have the guy, you know, you're very lucky. He had this huge Bowie knife, and they pull it out. And Roddy goes, can I have just a minute with that person? And they're like, why do you want to have a minute with that person? And Roddy takes his hand off his chest, and blood starts squirting the police officer in the face. Every time his heart pumps, it's squirting blood. The guy actually ended up stabbing him, and they had to take him to the hospital. And the doctor told him, if it would have been an inch either way, you'd be dead. Mm-hmm. But that's just how much they hated Roddy. So the last thing,
crazy.
It is, dude. It's nuts. But like the last thing, like his family was talking about how bad he was getting towards the end. Roddy was one of those people that just always thought on his feet and could talk and this and that. He died, I think it was July 31st, something like that, 2015, and he appeared on an ESPN sports show. It was like July 15th, something like that, a couple days before he actually died. And when you watch the interview, because they showed this segment on there, he's just stumbling. He can't come up with anything. He's mumbling his words. He was just so bad. And the next day, his wife and him, they're like, we're going to go to the doctor the next day and figure it out. And he ended up dying in bed that night. Yeah. But the big thing about that is I guess Roddy was getting into, more religion and whatnot towards the end of his life. And you know how we all get those text messages sometimes that was like sent in the morning, but you don't get it till like later on that night or even the next day?
Mm-hmm.
Hulk found out. Hulk Hogan, when he found out that Roddy died, he said it hit him really hard. And I guess he had a voicemail on his phone, but like his phone never rang and this and that. And I think he got it. I think he said it was like a day or two after Roddy died. And like Hulk said what the message was, but they actually played it on there so that you could see it was no bullshit. It was Roddy. And he said, "Hey, brother, just thinking of you. I'm walking with God today. We're in the light that's bright and shiny. Praying for you, and I love you." And it's like, it's just so,
Wow.
Dude, that's
crazy. He knew.
Like, it's like he was talking from heaven. It's so weird, man, because it's a trip. You got to watch that Roddy one. If you don't watch any of them, you got to watch that one.
Okay. I do know that there were some notes that were going around. And one of the things with me, and I'm sure these are all good watches, but I do get a little skeptical, especially sometimes. I mean, because if you've watched any WWE documentary, especially on their network, now I know WWE had a hand in these, but sometimes it feels like WWE has a little revisionist history about certain things. And now documentaries in general, it all depends on what you're trying to tell. Sometimes they don't get every detail right, and obviously it sounds like the Randy Savage one. Again, I've not seen it, but it sounds like they took certain things. It got real negative in a lot of instances. Now, granted, there's a lot of things Randy Savage did in his life that was not considered right, but at the same time, I heard that apparently WWE completely neglected to even mention a whole lot of his in-ring accomplishments, such as WrestleMania 4, WrestleMania 7, the Mega Powers, WrestleMania 5, WrestleMania 8, a lot of his title wins and stuff, and they focused a lot more about how he treated Elizabeth. It felt more like a Dark Side of the Ring episode from what I gather. And I think even McMahon even said in there that he felt betrayed when Savage went to WCW. But it was kind of, to me, kind of like, because Vince said the same thing in the Monday Night War documentary about Hogan, Nash, and Hall even. But in all those cases, I believe their contract ran out and Vince never renewed it, so they went and found work. But Vince, made it seem like they betrayed him. And
it was. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Eric.
Oh no, you're fine. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say it was actually with Savage. Everyone says that the big rumor was that Savage slept with Stephanie when she was fairly young and this and that, and that's why Vince always held a grudge and hated him.
Really?
But it was actually over the Slim Jim endorsement. I guess Vince felt that Slim Jim endorsement was supposed to be theirs, WWE's and whatnot. But I guess when they weren't going to re-sign Savage, or they just really didn't want to do anything with other than commentary, like Savage got that. Originally, that was supposed to be for Bam Bam Bigelow, but Savage took that with him to WCW. I think he was getting, it was like $750,000 a year. I was hearing that he was making off that endorsement, and Vince took that personally because he felt that was WWE money, that was his money, and that's what drove the big wedge between them. And you're right, that's, I guess, the second hour of that A&E documentary was a lot on just Elizabeth herself, not only, like you said, the way he treated her, but her time with Lex and the drug abuse that killed her and this and that. And then like the first hour, I guess they focused on a lot of Randy's early years, but like fucking just crazy and out there he was, and like it didn't really put him in a good light. And even like some of the dates, and it just wasn't right.
Yeah, they were out of order, I believe is what I heard.
So from what I haven't watched it yet, but from what I hear, it is not their best one.
Right, and it kind of paints WWE in a better light, which is another thing. I'd be remiss if I don't bring up the thing about, now, again, I haven't seen Roddy Piper's, and I'm sure for the most part it's good, but there's a spot in this one apparently where Vince McMahon's joking like he's on a phone call with Roddy Piper, and he's like,
I was just going to tell you that.
Yeah.
I know it verbatim.
Okay, go ahead then.
Vince is sitting there. The first shot is Vince sitting there like they're doing makeup on him, and he picks his phone up and he goes, "Roddy, hey, how you doing, pal? Oh, it's hot down there, huh? You're saving a seat for me? Not anytime soon, pal." And he hangs up. And he goes, "Oh, Roddy's not in hell. He's really in heaven." But you know what? The thing though too is once you watch that documentary and you see the way Rowdy is and whatnot, I think he would have actually got a kick out of it. I think.
Oh, good point.
But I mean, it's still though. I mean, for the person, it's still kind of shitty. I mean, for Vince to do. But I honestly think Rowdy would have been cool with it.
Yeah, and that's a very good point.
A joke Roddy would have made himself about somebody else, or just I really do.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, in that context, I guess it makes a little more sense.
But it was still. I mean, I don't think I would have done it, even as mouthy and as crazy as I am. I don't think.
Now, I did watch the Stone Cold Steve Austin one, though, and after this one, I guess we can move on to the actual shows here. But I did want to mention something I caught in the Stone Cold. And again, I'm not trying to paint Vince or WWE in a bad light, but it's just certain things that kind of pop out to me that I feel like, WWE kind of puts a little spin on it, you know what I'm saying? And obviously everybody remembers when Stone Cold did not want a job to Brock Lesnar and took his ball and went home, so to speak, as The Rock put it in one of his promos. He talks about in this documentary how he felt like he needed to go apologize to every guy in the locker room for not doing what he was required to do by jobbing to Brock. But Stone Cold also says the reason why he didn't do that is because it wasn't built properly. It was on no build, just a spur of the moment thing. He was supposed to go out there and lose to Brock. So Stone Cold said he jobbed to anybody, but with the proper build, and maybe you build it up to a pay-per-view or something like that, something big. So, but then
because wasn't that the match that you're talking about? That was a King of the Ring match.
It was a qualifying.
I think Lesnar won.
Yeah, it was like on Raw, I thought. Yeah. So, it would be a shocking moment for sure. But at the same time, I get Austin's point. And to me, from a booking standpoint, Austin was right, in my opinion, to not want to do that. Now, but then he said he went, I don't know if he said he had to or he felt like he needed to go apologize to everybody in the locker room. And Vince talked about how he was hurt by that he left. To me, it's like Austin was in the right here. Now, I understand, maybe not doing it as your boss says. Yeah.
He was, but at the same time, too, he always you got to do business.
Agreed.
Yeah.
I get that, too. Don't get me wrong. But I just felt like, I don't know. I just feel like that's kind of crappy that Austin.
Not really. Associated with work. You're not happy with the way they do things there, but you still fucking do it, right? Mm. If you don't do it, then what you do? You take off or you bitch and you complain about it.
And I think Austin even said something like that, B. I think he said something along those lines, like, it's still my job. I still got to go out there and.
Yeah, regardless of whether or not you as a fan feels like, nah, Austin's right. Same time, that's what he gets paid to do. He didn't do it.
Yeah, good point.
But they definitely should have. It's just like when Hogan and Goldberg went at it. They could have built that so much more when Goldberg took the belt off him in Atlanta.
Yep.
I mean, I think Goldberg said he's like, I'm just sitting on the couch and I get a call Sunday, hey, you're winning the title in Atlanta on tomorrow night. It's like that could, and they still within like 48 hours or something like that, they sold that place out. Mm-hmm. But they could have done so much more money if they would have built that properly. That's the problem with a lot of things these days. They rush into this shit instead of slow burning it, build it, man.
Yep.
Yeah.
But yeah, that whole Austin thing. I mean, you're right, Eric. I agree 100%. Stone Cold was the smart one on that. They could have made major money off of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But at the same time, Austin still, he should have done what was right. And
and Austin lived by that whole.
No one told him to. He felt the need to do it because he knew in the long run he was wrong.
Yeah, and he lives by that whole, do the job, do what you got to do.
But he's also on his podcast told like younger talent, he's like, if you feel like something's not right, you should say something and maybe kind of go against Vince, because a lot of people don't go against Vince nowadays. I don't feel like
there's a difference between saying something and bringing it up and then just you're literally going home.
Right. Yeah. Agreed. Right. And so I mean. I see that, yeah.
But also, too, that was a different time.
It was, and a lot of things are different now. But if they did what they did with Brock and Rock with Austin, that would have been a big deal. It was a big deal when Brock won the title off Rock. But they built it to SummerSlam, and it made more sense to do there.
Not everybody could do that, too, though.
Yeah.
You get a Jey Uso going back there and doing something like that. And
you ain't about to be working there no more.
An Austin or a Cena or a Roman, someone like that, they could get away with a little more.
And I wonder if sometimes maybe that's why they don't want certain people to get over sometimes, because they don't want anybody to kind of push back on them, against what they want to do. I mean,
could be.
There's going to be some of that in there. All right, well, that was the A&E biography reviews a little bit. I did like the Austin one, like I said. I need to get caught up on the others, but they sound like they're at least well done. I'm interested to see what they do with the Ultimate Warrior, because we know
this week? Is that this week's?
I'm not sure. I don't think so. I think the next one was Bret Hart, I think, which is another one that could be interesting.
Bret Hart was just shitting on Triple H.
Oh, was he?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, okay. Well, we'll see what happens with that then.
Yeah, ready to go, man, lock and load. That's right, I swear to God that I can drop it, bro. Yeah, I got a shot and I ain't stopping, no. That's how I know that I'm unstoppable.